All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 18 of the Red Plates podcast. Today we are joined by powerlifting legend Brittany Schlater. How are you, Brittany?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Very, very good. What about you, Kyle? Trevor, you guys good?
So far,
Yeah,
so good.
We've been waiting for this episode for a long time. We wanted to have you on, and what better time? Like you said 8 weeks out from Sheffield now.
Yeah, I think like eight and a half weeks. Give me that half week, man.
Yeah, 8.5 weeks. Yeah, it's coming quick. And then right after that is Moose Jaw Nationals, which will be fun for all the Canadians listening. We'll do a preview show for that, probably. We'll see. But
Yeah.
yeah, Britt, we wanted to have you on for a long time. You're probably, arguably, one of the faces or the face of Canadian powerlifting now. And it's an honor to have you on the show.
Of course, it's really cool to be here. And like we talk about all the time, like Luke Homer and I, just how cool it is what you guys are doing because we need that for Canadian powerlifting. Because honestly, I think it's a lot more competitive than it gets credit for. So it's really cool to see you guys highlighting a lot of stuff.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that
Yeah.
means a lot. Like more and more people are now like telling us that they really like it, and it's cool to hear like that you and like Luke Homer and other people listen in. And yeah, we're nearing episode 20. We the stat was, I think, Kyle, what was the stat you found?
I forget. I think it was Trevor. It was like something. This is gonna be wrong numbers wise, but it's like 90% of podcasts don't make it past 20 episodes. Like they all quit
Yeah.
before then.
So
So
we're
we're almost
almost
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Well, let me
gotta make
really
it soon.
royally screw this one up and then you guys can just quit from here.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm surprised
um
I still haven't said anything that's got us in trouble.
I think last internally you almost were there. We'll see.
You've
Maybe
been close,
Just
yeah.
need
Garrett's titties will get me in trouble on this one.
yeah. Yeah. Well, for those of you who don't know who Brittany is, she, like I said earlier, is one of the faces of Canadian powerlifting. You have been in the game for almost a decade in terms of competition, right, Brittany?
Yeah,
Did
so April
you?
2016 was my first meet.
Okay. And it was, you just went right into the OPA then.
Yeah,
And since then, Brittany has gone on to break the world record total. I believe it was twice, right?
yeah,
Last year, 2023, and then at Sheffield as well, right?
yeah. So 2023 Worlds and then Sheffield last year were world record totals.
Amazing. Yeah. I think that, yeah, you're probably the first Canadian to ever do that, I believe, to break the world record total.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like so bad at keeping up with this stuff. I was like, oh, we're gonna talk about achievements? Cool.
Yeah, yeah, we've had a few people who have been on like and achieved a lot in powerlifting, but you're definitely the most accomplished, and that list is crazy long. If you look at Brittany's open powerlifting, it's like number one, number one, number one, number one. I think like only once or twice you haven't been on a podium or won. So,
Yeah, one time and I'm still salty about it.
how many medals do you think you have just from
I don't
powerlifting?
know. So I get a lot of shit for this all the time, but they're just in a Ziploc bag shoved in my basement. So I honestly have no idea.
Oh my gosh. That's insane. Brittany, also you recently unofficially broke the world record deadlift, right? Or yeah,
Yeah, so
unofficially
I
at this
broke
national.
the deadlift record at Worlds this year, but it was immediately taken away. And then I unofficially broke it at Canadian Nationals.
Go. And so honestly, Sheffield's coming up. That's probably something that you have your eyes set on, right?
Yeah, that's definitely a big goal for the day.
There's
I think
600.
because I think
Yeah, I
last
know. Finally,
Sheffield
my first 600 pull in a competition. I've been waiting for that.
That's amazing.
because I think last Sheffield you guys we'll blame Garrett. Garrett loaded like half a kilo less than the world record or something, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He loaded, I think it was 1 kilo less than the world record because we had like discussed my goals earlier in the day, and I said that money didn't matter. My goal was to walk away with the world record total. And I have a history of dropping deadlift. So he's like, we're gonna load literally the minimum that we need,
Mhm.
and everyone still gives him shit for it. He still owes me money for it.
Yeah, I think I've seen you like the week or two after because you were volunteering at Centrals, and I wanted to bring it up, but I don't know if I did or if I was like too scared because like maybe that's a touchy subject, but
Yeah, no, it's not touchy. I mean, he will forever get slack for that, but I think he made the right call based on what our conversation that we had had. So
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he knew what your goals were. You did absolutely ragdoll that deadlift though. That was,
Yeah,
I
I
think
know.
we were we were all sitting, I think, in Kyle's basement watching on like the projector, and you pulled that, and we were like, everyone's jaw was on the floor. It was
Yeah, it definitely moved more like a second than a third, but
was the energy and the nerves super high for that one?
for the pull or for Sheffield?
Well, I guess just the pull, but we'll definitely talk about
The
Sheffield.
pull was no, I knew I had it in the bag. Like I was super, super confident in it. I had pulled like 2 kilos less than it in training, which is a big deal for me because I don't hit huge numbers in training. So
Hmm.
I knew I had it in the bag.
Hmm. Recently, it seems like you have been hitting some really good numbers in training too. I've seen,
Yeah.
I mean, I've followed your training for a long time. You usually have like a big, big uptick at like your competitions always, but you've been hitting some really good stuff in the gym as well. So that's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I think before Nats, didn't you
Perhaps been
pull
feeling good
something?
for
Did
this
you pull
Sheffield.
6 in the gym?
Yeah, I've pulled 275 twice, once before Worlds and once before Nats.
Okay.
Or
Yeah, I
once,
remember because you tagged
yeah.
Bryce or something. You're like, sorry, coach, YOLO pull or something just to get us
Yeah.
on. Yeah.
Because I was filming with oh gosh, Clean Strength Media. They were there. Just for pre-nats, whatever. And I was like, whatever, we're just gonna send it. Why not?
Well, hey, it worked out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 275 was really nice at the Strength Collective.
Yeah, it was definitely better than the first time I did it. So I'm like, slowly we'll get better at it.
Mhm. And so I guess one thing that we should definitely touch on, how is the energy in that Sheffield arena when you're lifting?
It's you can't even really describe it, honestly. It's unmatched and not something I thought I would enjoy just because of who I am as a lifter. And I honestly I was so scared of Sheffield last year going in and I dreaded it and I dreaded it and I was like, I'm never doing this again, but I said I would do it, so I'm gonna see it through. And then as soon as it was done, I was like, I have to get back there. Like I have to
Wow.
find a way to get back there. And I never thought I would ever say that, but it's crazy. It's just it's like a rock concert, but at the same time, I tune everything out when I lift, and so it was really interesting. All I could hear in the crowd was Rayston's voice because it was familiar. And like out of thousands of people, how you pick one person's voice, given it was on bench and nobody really cared about bench, but like it was a really, really cool experience.
Yeah, that's so cool. Because I also, when I lift, like I block out everything, but I can't
Yeah.
imagine blocking out like a stadium. Like, I feel like it would be like when you go out there, it would be scary, but it was actually much better than you had anticipated.
Yeah, like I was able to maintain really, really calm composure, which I was surprised, and I didn't get super nervous, which I was a wreck leading into it. Like Garrett and Bryce were like, "We're gonna sleep outside your door," because I kept saying I was just gonna dip in the middle of the night and not show up. So they were like, "We're just gonna sleep, take turns sleeping outside your door." But yeah, once I got there, like it was just like a meet, but it was crazy once you step back and actually soak in what had just happened. It was like, oh, that was real. That really did just happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Whenever I've seen people from the audience, like their perspectives, like people like pointing their phones around, and you really
Yeah.
can just feel like you could feel the energy through the phone and people just chanting each other's like all the lifters' names. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that seemed unreal. Did you have like
So
goosebumps?
yeah, for sure I did. And it's really interesting because it's an old like opera house type building and we actually warm up in the basement, but you can hear the crowd when they start playing the intro video from the basement of the stadium because it's just so loud. It's unreal. We were like, "Oh God, what are we about to come up to?"
I think they're upping it this round too. They don't have a bigger venue.
Not this year, so I think next year is the goal. Or I guess part two will
Part two.
part two might be the goal, but yeah, they're working on it. It's in the same space this year.
Yeah, because they're
Awesome.
selling out too. Like I remember I've always wanted to go, like since they started doing it.
Yeah.
And but this year they sold out like way in advance.
Yeah,
Like
they
pretty
sold
much
out
right when
before the lifters were even solidified, like before Worlds. So
yeah.
I was like, well, I
Yeah.
guess there's one way to get back there, and it's not going as a spectator.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it sold out like well in advance, like you said, well before Worlds, I believe,
Yeah.
everyone didn't even care who's going. They're like, I've seen the highlights, I've seen how exciting that was, and I think every powerlifter really wants to be there, obviously on the stage, but even just to spectate. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine how that would feel.
Yeah, I went the Sheffield #1. I went with Ryan and Rayaston and to watch Jess because they jokingly were like, "Oh, you should come with us," and I was like, "Done," and just like showed up. I had never traveled with them before. We weren't super close, and I just like went on vacation with them and went to
Oh,
Sheffield. It was super cool, and like people from SBD were like, "Oh, you'll be here next year," and I was like, "No, no way," but like, thank you, like I appreciate that. And then yeah, I earned my spot to compete year 2. So.
that's awesome. And going into this one, obviously, probably still nervous, but I feel like people get nervous for all their comps. Like, but now you know what to expect at least. Like, how are you feeling going into it?
So it's been up and down. A bit of backstory, which is kind of out there floating around. I super burnt out before Worlds. Thought I was done with the sport forever. Like I was over it, just done. I did Canadian Nationals after Worlds because I wanted to keep the door open in case I decided that I wanted to keep competing. And I was still super burnt out. I was literally hitting my top set and going home. Like that was the only training I did before nationals. Um, so I just kind of went into nationals like totally unprepared, just like whatever, we'll see what happens. And then leading into Sheffield, it's kind of been wishy-washy of burnout and like trying not to totally burn out again. But I actually had a really cool moment on Sunday. I was driving to the gym to train with a couple of pals, and I just like was listening to music, kind of dissociating on my 30-minute drive, and like started crying because I was like, holy shit, like I actually care again, and like I enjoy this, and I'm not done yet. And that was
Hmm.
like a really cool feeling, especially to have some weeks still to actually prep when caring about it.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Just
so
driving
not
over.
really as nervous as I was for the first Sheffield because I poured everything I had into that prep, but this time it's been finding that balance of like taking care of myself as a being rather than just an athlete
Hmm.
and still pushing really hard in training.
What do you think
Yeah, it's a
helped you
hard
like turn
balance.
that leaf? Like, what do you think got you fired up about training again?
I think stepping back was really important. Um, like I dragged my ass through nationals prep. Did not care what happened. I was like, whatever. If it happens, it happens. Put together a decently well day, like decent day, and I was like, all right, if this is my baseline when I'm not trying, maybe there is still hope that there's more out there and that I'm not maxed out and I hit my best PR ever. So I just kind of like stepped back, started spending more time just like, oh, we're going to hang out with friends at the gym, doing exercises. Like Bryce worked with me really closely through all of this. And we tried to identify things that I was still enjoying doing in the gym so that I would do them instead of just being like, well, don't like this, gonna skip. Because like I was at that point and I've never ever done that as an athlete. Like, don't skip accessories, don't skip anything. And I was
Mm.
like, nah, back off, don't matter. I did my one set. This is fine. But he really did work collaboratively with me to find things I enjoyed. And then we slowly just started building upon it. And then I was like chipping away at little PRs and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I miss that feeling.
Wow. So that just kind of recently happened, like the comeback and that good feeling.
Yeah, I think it was like I don't know, 2 weeks ago that I was like, maybe we're not done. And then Sunday was like the big fuck, I actually still care moment. Yeah.
I think I've seen you post a few times too, like, oh, are any friends wanting to train at like this gym? And so you're
Yeah.
trying to like, see other people and just have a good time, I guess.
Yeah. So I really struggle with training alone now, especially after burnout. Which is crazy because until Sheffield prep last year, I trained exclusively by myself for years and years and years.
Mhm.
But I struggle with it now and struggle to find motivation to train alone. So if I can't train like Luke Homers, who I train with every day, and if I can't train with him, then I'll like put an SOS, like, does anybody want to train? Because people really enjoy like training with me, but like I don't like training with people that aren't my crew. So
Mhm.
And it's always interesting, like going to other gyms because you're kind of like a spectacle, and I don't like that. Whereas now at my gym, I'm old news, so I really like that. But yeah, I'll post. And before Sheffield and before Worlds, I did like little tours of like a bunch of different gyms and going to train with different people and different crews that I knew uh like had my back and were in really good spirits about everything to help keep me motivated.
Yeah. That's very true too. Like you can't just kind of like go to a normal gym because you're just like so strong that even a light day people would be like, "Whoa." Like you just like would stand out and people would be like just paying attention. You just want to be in there, get the workout done.
Yeah. And that's it. Like most of the time it's like just get in and get it done. Like not every session can be like long and fun and whatever. Sometimes it's just put your head down and get it done.
Mhm. And do you think like the burnout is just from you competing? Because you did like 2023 Worlds, then Sheffield, then like Nationals, and just being back to back, and like I have to do this again and again, and like trying to be a human and an athlete. Like that's the big problem that was there.
Yeah, I think it is a lot of just back to back to back really, really big meets because like the most relaxed meet that I did was Commonwealth, and that was like my fun meet. And it's crazy that like my fun meet is an international meet. I'm like, oh, it's still like pretty high stakes. So I think it was just a combination of too many big meets back to back to back and just like pouring everything I had of myself into it for so long that I was like, shit, like there's more to life than this and I gotta find
Mm,
it.
yeah, that makes sense. Just so much pressure all the time too, especially like now everyone kind of knows you, so maybe it feels like okay, I can't just go to a meet and do all right or have like a not so good day. Like I need to do what people are expecting of me, right?
Well, it's really funny that you say that because after Sheffield, I did bench only at Centrals 5 days later, and I was more nervous benching at Centrals than I was at Sheffield because like I'm known in Canada and people never get to see me compete in person, so they expect really big things. And I was like, oh my God, what if I choke? Whereas
What if I
Sheffield, if
joke?
you choke, it's like, oh, it's okay. It was a big meet. She was scared, like whatever. There's a bigger loophole out of it.
That's so funny. Yeah, because you were there, you said 5 days later. So you wrapped up Sheffield, soaked that all in, and then you went to Centrals and you were volunteering and you did
Yeah.
bench only.
Yeah.
Did you end up putting up that performance like at Centrals and make the people happy?
Yeah, I benched, I think 155, so 2.5 kilos less than I had benched at Sheffield, but it was like RPE melt my face off. It was so hard because I was spotting and loading the day before. And I think it secured best female bencher in Canada aside from Abby Silverberg, but we won't go there.
Yeah. That's a very good bench. And also, I was gonna say too, one thing that we all have noticed in Canada is like not only are you a great lifter, but you always are volunteering and reffing at all these meets. What
Yeah.
is the reason that you like obviously giving back is good and nice, but why do you do so much? You know, like you're like everywhere.
Yeah, I think honestly it's really, really important and it's become a really big passion of mine. Like I love seeing lifters succeed and lifters can't succeed if there aren't volunteers to help run these meets. Like they
Mhm.
just don't happen and people don't understand how short we are volunteers all the time. And like there'll be times where it'll be back to back to back to back weeks or weekends of just volunteering, refereeing, and it's exhausting. And I think that partially contributed to burnout because it's hard to recover when you're doing all those things. But I think the passion is really what drives me, and I found that it's really good for my mental game to be around volunteering. Like the first year that I really volunteered was at Nationals in Winnipeg, and I was so much less nervous by the time I finally got to the platform to compete because I had been around the venue, in and out, behind the scenes, doing everything. And so I was like, oh, it's not as scary as it seems. So that's a big part of it, which is a selfish reason, but there are lots of unselfish reasons too. But mostly I love being a part of people's days. And, you know, as a spotter and loader, you can like actually interact with the lifters and like pick them up after a bad lift or like root them on as they're hitting their PRs. And that's really, really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a very selfless thing to do. Like the only one like little thing that like could be considered selfish, you pointed
Yeah.
out. But yeah, no, it's very selfless what you do because we were talking about that was a really big thing that you were just at Sheffield, the biggest like meet, and then you're there at Centrals, you're spotting and loading, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Like
very
I didn't
cool.
even get to go home after Sheffield. I flew into Toronto, stayed at my dad's condo for a night, and then was right back at Central. So it was definitely a lot. But honestly, I feel like it helped too with not totally crashing after Sheffield because there was something to look forward to that was powerlifting related. And that
Hmm.
was really nice to fall back on.
Hmm. Yeah, coming back from that high of Sheffield and all the people screaming your name to then just be sitting in your like room or something. It's
Yeah,
like
like what do we do now?
just watch TV or something. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, this is very drastically different.
right,
That is pretty cool. You got like the little in between, so it's not like a big crash.
right.
That's
So I think
awesome.
all the listeners need to remember that next time that there's a sign up sheet for volunteering.
Yeah.
Brittany rolls out of Sheffield. That's not like you volunteer one session here and there. Like
Yeah,
Brittany volunteers every session for the whole meet,
yeah.
Hmm.
whether she's
Yeah.
Which is
repping
not
or
necessary by
volunteering.
any means. One session is more than enough. We appreciate any of it, but yeah, I think it's super important and it gives you a totally different perspective of the sport, which I think a lot of people don't have appreciation for.
Hmm. Yeah, it's cool. Like, I think I did. Well, I honestly need to volunteer more. But some of the time, like, I'm coaching as well. So, but
Yeah.
that's just a cope. I need to do it. I need to volunteer more. Anyway, I need to learn from Brittany, just like everyone else listening. But I remember, like, I think 2021 Centrals, I was like a lot of people were new at that meet, and like they could be your first meet. So I was helping like a lot of new people, and like they would be not doing things correctly at all and just be so confused, and you just give like a simple tip and you can really like save their day, like
Yeah.
to make them have a better day. And people like would message me after like, oh, that was so cool. So that you like just like, I don't know, fix the day or whatever. But yeah, you can definitely have a big impact just by spotting and loading, and also you get a free t-shirt sometimes, right?
Yeah. I think I don't know. I think it's super I don't know, it's important too. Like you don't make it to a level in the sport where you're too good to volunteer. And I feel like people think that they do. And that really, really bothers me. Like on a very deep level. I'm like, we all started somewhere and there were people there behind us when we were lifting that squat or like handing off our benches at meets and like we wouldn't be there without those people. So like I don't know why some people think that they're better than that, but it drives me bonkers.
Mm.
Yeah, you see a ton of like high level lifters, especially even like at nationals, like literally just lifted and they're like volunteering.
Yeah.
I know for me, one thing I struggle with is if you're near the end of the week, like do you spot and load like all
No.
week leading up? Yeah, because I guess you could do
So
other
at
positions.
nationals in Moose Jaw, I will be spotting and loading all week, and likely lifting the last day if I choose to lift. But generally speaking, no, I would never spot and load before lifting. But even just
Yeah,
like running the computers or announcing or live stream commentating, like there's always something.
Mm.
yeah, true. Yeah, that's the one
Yeah.
thing I struggle with. Like I'll typically like I guess Trevor's probably the same too. Like we'll be like near the end of the week, even Luke too.
Mhm.
So I always like, okay, what do I do like beforehand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a friggin' army to run these meets, especially the bigger like regionals and nationals and stuff. Like
Yeah.
they need so many volunteer, like so many different positions. You'd be surprised. Like it's not just slinging plates.
Yeah. Usually it's hard to get spotters and loaders earlier in the week for that reason. Which I think meet directors are starting to realize, especially like equipped is usually at the beginning of the week, and you really need spotters that are experienced for equipped lifting because so many things can go drastically wrong very quickly. So they're starting to like bring in specific people to volunteer for those sessions so that there's somebody there that knows what's going on.
Yeah, I saw that's what the Stins are doing for this nationals, right? Like they have a specific spotting team or something like that that's coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be cool.
It's pretty smart, honestly, because A lot of the big meets, like since COVID, seem like they've had a huge problem getting people. So even if we're all paying a little bit extra and they're flying people to do it, like I think that's totally worth it.
For sure. And like they just have a really good crew behind them too. And people show up for them because they show up for powerlifting on so many different levels. So
Yeah.
it just shows like it matters, your presence in the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing worse than showing up to spot and load. There's only two of you, and you look at each other like, "Oh
Yeah.
crap, this is gonna suck."
Yeah.
Um, so Brittany, one thing that you mentioned when we were talking about like the recent burnout was you and Bryce and your relationship together. We know that you speak like a lot on Instagram about like your relationship and or even just like after meets and stuff. What is like, how big of a role has he kind of played, and when did you start getting coached by Bryce?
I started getting coached by Bryce after Worlds in South Africa. So that would have been 2022, I think. Yeah, 2022. I made the switch over to Bryce. It was an interesting 6 months. There was a lot of disconnect because I wasn't fully opening up with him because I didn't trust him all the way. But slowly, like, I started opening up a little bit and he started opening up a little bit. And he started like figuring out my training and like how much more I had in the tank come meet day than I did in training. And like we figured each other out slowly, and like over the years he's become literally one of my best friends, like hands down, one of the homies. And I legitimately would not be in the sport still if it weren't for him. Like he's put up with a lot of, not even put up with, he's managed a lot of my freakouts and my I'm not good enough for this and like my imposter syndrome, and like helping me feel like I'm actually worth it, but also letting me know that I'm worth more than just being an athlete. Because leading into Sheffield, like there were multiple times that I really thought I was gonna pull out. And he was like, if you do, like you're not letting us down, like we're not disappointed in you. We understand and you have to come first. And just hearing that, like, I don't know, it was just what I needed at that moment. And we got through it, obviously, and got through it well. But there are just like so many times that I don't think I would have been able to persevere if Bryce weren't in my corner.
That's an awesome relationship that you guys have built. And I didn't realize it was only like the past like 2 years then.
Yeah, it was like a big run because I think it was 1 year we put like 95 kilos on my total or something. Uh,
Wow.
or
That's a
like a
good
year and
year.
a half maybe. Yeah, it was wild, and it's not like I hadn't been around for many years before, like a new lifter making newbie gains. Like it was pretty monumental. And like I don't know, we have more than just a coach athlete relationship. Like there's a personal relationship that really carried me a long way and like helped me start believing in myself and my abilities because I was very self-limiting for a very long time. So he's helped me to realize a lot about myself in lifting and in life, which I'm forever grateful for to him.
Like, as following you for a while, you can kind of see like the growth that you've like experienced as like an
Yeah.
athlete and like I guess like as a person as well.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. And I think it's really important to share those things because I feel like a lot of what I share is a lot of what many of us go through, but people don't talk about it. And I hate that because I hated feeling like I was alone when I was going through those things. So I'm like, whatever, we'll put it out there because like people are going to talk no matter what. So might as well just answer the questions that people have already.
Hmm. And honestly, too, like for people, you're such a big idol. So I think you speaking about it is really important. Like people can look to you and be like, wow, like Brittany like goes through these things. Like, how you felt like you're the only one feeling certain ways. To see someone at like such a good level in the sport who's been around and is like obviously a very nice person, like always volunteering and just there for the sport, to see like that you feel these ways. Some people maybe would just perceive that like you're here, how like we talked, like some people really believe they're too good for certain things,
Yeah.
but you've reached all these levels and you still are very transparent. So I think it's a very big like superpower.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy to talk about a lot of that stuff. Like some people find it like whatever, I don't know, cliche, but I think with powerlifting, with like an individual sport, like there's so much pressure on yourself as an individual. Like I think a lot of people deal with that kind of stuff too. So I think having someone in your corner like Bryce is really good because he's also dealt with like lifting at a high level and that like amount of pressure. So like I'm
Yeah.
assuming he can like relate to you.
Yeah, it's funny. He'll always be like, I can relate to an extent, but this is more pressure than I've ever been under. So I'll tell you my experience and you can try to translate it to yours, but you win this battle. But I don't know, it's cool. He's a good dude and he's super, super invested in my training because like I put a lot of pressure on myself, but he puts a lot of pressure on himself as well because like if I don't succeed in a meet, it's on him in his
Mhm.
eyes, which he holds like a very, very close to his heart. And that means a lot to me to have somebody that's just as invested in me as I am. Because like I'm pouring so much of myself into it and knowing that he does the same really helps. But then like I don't know, it flips the switch like Trevor, you were lifting with us at Nats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Bryce pulled for the win, his last deadlift, I was just like ugly sobbing, like in the middle of my meet, just ugly sobbing in the back room on the guy's side. And like people were yelling at me, like, you need to be warming up to the side. I'm just like ugly sobbing. I'm like, I just need a minute. Because it's like really cool to see him succeed too. And now we get to go to Germany together, and that's really cool.
Very cool. Yeah, I think I've seen because I was watching your guys' session and I've seen how like how much emotion you showed when he won. I mean, everyone was
Yeah.
very happy, but it was very, very cool to see like that bond that you guys have.
Yeah. And like he does the same thing. He'll cry his face off. But that's I don't know, that's what's cool about it. Like it's he's not too good for it, and I love that about him.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah, that was
think
a
it's
crazy
kind of
session. I was in the back like handling Paige as well, so I saw Brittany competing. You were super chill the whole day, just like like. But there were so
Yeah.
many crazy things going on, like Bryce's last pull, whatever. I'm trying to watch everything on both platforms, and then you had the really big deadlift, I think, right at the end because I think you
Yeah.
guys finished lifting afterwards, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and it was like extra epic too because the lights were shut down, so they had like
Oh
the
my
little
God, the
flags.
flags. And they
You
had
hit
to
it, and we're all
survive the
just waiting,
Reyes
and they do.
thin down command.
Yeah,
yeah, that was a really good nationals.
Yeah, it
And
was.
that national, so you said you didn't feel very motivated at all going into that, and then you pulled 601.
Yeah, oh God, it was trash. That prep was trash. It was like the worst powerlifting I've ever done in my entire life. It was awful. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's really cool that that is my baseline when doing the bare minimum.
Because you squatted like you had a really good meet, you had a big total, and you put up
Yeah, I totaled
some of
like
your
604.5, I think, and 610 is my best. So, or 710, sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, so I totaled 704.5. So, not
Yeah, so you
hateful.
did really well. Wow. And this time around, like you have a little more time and you're more fired up, so Sheffield's gonna be a pretty crazy one for you.
Yeah, we're hoping so.
Um,
wondering if Bryce is making notes from this like past block on internationals though. Just skip back downs, all time deadlift PR.
Yeah.
Oh God. I know. He's like, we're gonna try some new peaking method for nationals. And I was like, okay. And then it didn't work well. And I was like, Bryce, like I literally didn't do the work. I don't know why you would expect it to work. And he was like, okay, but I think he was just really hard on himself for it. And I was like, no, no, that's on me 100%.
mhm. Well, I think you did really like if you almost hit your best total, I'm sure like you peaked well based off of all of those circumstances. Like,
Yeah.
so it was still a good one.
Yeah, it's still a
And
great
you guys,
total of like all time deadlift PR, right?
Yep. The
Mhm.
only thing I PR'd.
So I think for us, Trevor, Kyle, we just got to stop training from now, and maybe we'll PR our totals and
Yeah.
I've
Bob
everyone.
said
tried
the
that
same thing till
before. It
Nats
didn't
games.
work that well. Mentioned earlier, Britt, there was a year that you put, I think you said 90 kilos on your total.
Yeah.
So obviously the coaching was a big part of that, but was there any other things that helped you go from like that elite level to super mega extra elite?
Um, I think that's kind of where the building confidence in myself started coming in. and like
Mhm.
trusting myself, because I was so scared of like pushing my boundaries because I was scared of failing. And then I mean, training was the majority of it, but yeah, honestly, just like believing in myself and not being like, oh, this is the best I can do, and like actually finding those limit lifts rather than just like smoking all my attempts was a really big part of it.
In the
Training in a
gym.
different environment too, because I know you used to train by yourself all the time, you said, right? So like with
Yeah.
squats, for example, it's kind of hard to load like 95% plus or getting close to your 1 rep max, like when you're alone with no squats.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a lot easier to spot with or squat with spotters, but
yeah.
I did a lot of stupid shit scared in my basement alone, and I would just like message somebody and be like, if you don't hear from me in 2 minutes, probably call someone, because I'm not okay.
Just
But
have someone on FaceTime or something.
yeah, yeah, I know exactly. That's just what I had around though, and that's what I did, and it worked well. But it definitely gives you another edge having like pals to push you to be like, oh no, that wasn't actually RPE, or like you could smoke another 10 kilos. Like, okay, cool, we'll try it.
Yeah, for me, I find it's huge. Like when I have my big squat days, just to have like two spotters, for example.
Yeah.
Like I know my last heavy squat before this nationals, I only had like one friend that was there with me, and I'm like, dude, I don't feel comfortable having you back spot me with like
Yeah,
680 pounds or whatever it is. Like, you know, it's like I'm not gonna like I'm almost more comfortable bailing versus having you behind me.
for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, one spotter is basically no spotters if you're squatting.
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like, what are you gonna do? Pull it off my back, maybe? Or we're
Roll
both
it.
gonna go down.
Yeah, even like 405. If somebody failed 405 badly, I probably couldn't save it.
Yeah.
And I'm a bigger guy. Like the average gym goer is not catching anything by
No.
himself.
You know, I've had some like pretty like back when I did PT at Good Life, just like spotting clients that were less experienced. I've had some awkward spot experiences.
Oh
Like
God, I can only
back spotting
imagine.
squats is not super fun.
No.
No. So you said you mainly train with Luke now?
Yeah.
Is he in like the Ottawa area too, or
He's like 35 minutes outside of the city. So I
okay.
live on the west end and he's like 35 minutes west. So he's a half hour from my house at Ultimate Fitness. And it's a little
Okay.
town called Arnprior.
Okay. Cool.
So you're kind of by Eric
Yeah,
then?
so I trained with Eric on Sunday.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He
Sweet.
finally came out because now that he's getting into equipment, he decided he's not too cool for us.
He doesn't want to die in his basement alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess he's another good like person that trains like by himself like majority of the time, right?
Yeah, I know he's doing equipped self handoffs. I'm like, dude, I literally live 15 minutes from you. Just call me and I will come to your basement. Like, that is scary.
Yeah.
Because he just got a combo rack too, so
Yeah,
not very safe, I think. He already benches a lot, and then equipped bench now. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, it doesn't sound
Did you
too
see he already
safe.
blew a hole in the renovations?
Yup. I know. I was like, I'm sure your wife was so happy with you.
Yeah.
So I guess is he gonna be prepping like along with he's doing Nats equipped, right?
Yeah, he's doing nationals equipped. Yeah, he's saying like every other week he's gonna try to come out with us, which is cool.
Sweet.
It's got a pretty
Yeah, I
good
guess because
squad
you're gonna
there.
be getting into some heavy stuff soon, right? 8 weeks out, start hitting some big lifts.
Yeah, I'm in my first peaking block. This is week 2. So I
Okay.
have 2 more weeks of this block, 1 washout, and then a 4-week peak.
Cool.
And you're
Like, are
already
you expecting?
squatting heavy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I hit 260 on Sunday for like RP 7. So
Bam.
not
That's
hateful.
really good. That's really good, especially considering, like you mentioned, a lot of the time your gym lifting isn't nearly like your comp lifts.
Yeah, like I'm starting to get better at hitting like true RPE instead of what I thought was RPE like I used to, which is why like what I hit in competition is actually closer to what I hit in training now. And just being able to push myself a little bit harder in training has led to that. But yeah, it's cool to get back into some heavy stuff.
Because 260 used to be like a very end of prep number, wouldn't it have been before?
Yeah, so 260, the first time I squatted it would have been, no, yeah, the first time in training I squatted it was before Malta. I squatted 260 for a single and hit 285 at the meet. I had never had anything more than 260 on my back. So that was the first
That's
time, was like a
insane.
year ago.
Do you know
So
the number they're putting on, like when you're going out?
Uh, so I never like to know the exact number, but obviously at international meets, like it's displayed on a screen, but I try not to focus
Yeah.
too much on it. I like knowing like, okay, this was my last warm up. You're going 22 kilos heavier. And then after my first attempt, how did it move? And then I have a friend that always sends me my attempt and I'll watch it. And I like to know how many more kilos I'm going up. So like we're going up 10 or we're going up 7.
Yeah. Okay.
mhm.
Have you ever walked out and went, "Oh God"?
Um, every time I squat, kind of.
Yeah.
No, my coaches are like Bryce and Garrett are really honest with me, and they don't like try to shock me by any means. I think the biggest oh shit was walking out to when I hit the world record squat in Malta. Just seeing the world record flashing on the screen, I was like, oh God, all right, here we go.
That was the
Yeah.
crazy session where like all three of you guys broke it, wasn't it? Bonica,
Yeah,
you, and Sunita. Yeah, that was a
yeah.
crazy session.
Yeah, I had it for like 45 seconds or something. Never
Yeah.
again, because Anita's up there with like her 311 squat, which is
Yeah,
wild,
that's
but
insane. Do you think she's gonna hit 700 at Sheffield?
I think she will. Yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's so crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy that it was 2021. You just said, right? It was 280 something.
That
No,
was in
2023.
2023.
2023. Now we're in
Yeah, and it was,
2025 and we're doing 700.
yeah, yeah. Her squat has
That's
blown
insane.
up.
That's crazy. Yeah, even from because at this, oh, I'm getting all mixed up now. 24 Sheffield, she squatted 300, right?
Yeah, she squatted 300 at Sheffield this year or
And then
last
at
year.
Worlds,
This
she
year?
was already at 311. I don't know. It's all one big.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's come that far in 1 year.
Yeah,
Like that's
it's
insane.
incredible. It's so cool to watch too.
Same with the total for you guys, because not that long ago the total record was like 660 ish.
Yeah, it was relatively low, and then just like slowly but surely, it's just been blowing up. And like
Yeah,
she annihilated that world record total at Worlds this year.
yeah, it was 720 something.
Yeah, I think like 721 or something, something crazy.
That's nuts.
Or no,
Is it?
731, 731, because I would need to PR by like 22 kilos to break the world record.
Oh,
Yeah,
jeez.
that's crazy. That's like
Is it just
70
gonna be you
kilos in
two?
like
Because
2 years.
the other girl dropped out, right?
Yeah, Alexis from the US dropped out.
Okay. So it's you and Sunita then, and
Yeah, for 84 plus.
oh yeah.
That's gonna be a good battle.
Yeah, it'll be really cool. I'm excited for it. Just trying to like set some realistic expectations and try to be happy with that rather than like, oh, I have to like really battle head to head. Like this is very much a me trying to prove to me that I am not done kind of meet
Hmm.
rather than like, oh, I'm gonna chase the world record total. Like if it doesn't happen, like I can still have a good day.
Yeah, definitely. You because you made a post too about the 710 not being your limit, right? Like because I think well, it wasn't that long ago that you hit it, but you hadn't PR'd since you hit that.
Yeah.
But you've put on 90 kilos in a year, so there's like
Yeah.
maybe that's this time right here.
Well, and that's the thing. It's so hard to like walk that fine line of setting realistic expectations, but not self-limiting yourself. Because there was a time period where I was putting 30 plus kilos on my total every meet, and I'm not incapable of that. Excuse me. So I know that it's potential, but if it doesn't happen, like there's still ways to have good days.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with like you're probably gonna pull the deadlift record. Like there's so many good things to come. But I do think that you're definitely due for a good total and you're gonna do well.
Yeah, I hope so. I think I'm finally not scared of squatting, which is huge. I switched to flats, and ever since I switched to flats, I've been absolutely terrified of walking out squats. I don't know what it was, but was just so in my head that I would like unrack a squat and just have to rack it and just couldn't do it. So we've been like really working on heavy walkouts, which is like really like you're this high of a lifter and you're doing heavy walkouts, but like it's made a world of difference. And then bench, my elbow's finally happy and healthy, knock on wood. So I think I'm due for a pretty sick bench PR. So we'll see.
Yeah, and you're also holding, I know you're actually doing heavy holds, but you're holding like 250 plus on your back way more often than like you ever did when you loaded 285 for the first time.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. Like
yeah.
250 is like an easy number now. And like slowly I've bumped that threshold of like scary number up. Whereas like scary number used to be at one point it was 220 and then it was like 240 and then 250 and then 265 and then 272 is the scary number. But slowly we're bumping that threshold up.
Hmm. Yeah, with the amount of heavy lifts that you've done recently, like you always just like kind of prove that self-doubt wrong because you just end up doing it and then all of those little wins will just, hopefully help you break through that mental plateau.
Yeah, for sure. And like a big piece of advice that Bryce gave me is he's like, you have to treat yourself like an equipped lifter. If you can walk out the weight on the bar, you can squat it, like you're strong enough. But the hardest part for you right now is the walkout. But if you can walk it out, it's gonna go. And
Mhm.
like I fully, fully, fully trust him and Garrett with my numbers. Like they're not gonna load something wrong or something that I'm not capable of. So just trusting that and really, really leaning into that.
What
Yeah, I
sparked the
think
change to flats?
So I kept getting okay, so I switched to low bar from high bar because I was a high bar squatter for 8 years. Um, Finally realized the benefit of low bar. Um, I kept getting pitched forward in heels, and I was having a really hard time finding balance. And I had tried switching to flats before, and I enjoyed it, but I don't know why it just didn't take. It was with a different coach, but I switched back to heels, stayed in heels, and then I tried just on a whim squatting in flats, and it helped me to get better positioning and more consistent depth because I was actually able to like think and feel and sit back into my heels rather than like staying so far on my forefoot that I was pitching myself forward coming out of the hole. And it just like made my squat better, but it definitely took a while for it to catch up, if that makes sense. Like it
mhm.
was more
Yeah.
technically sound, but the weight decreased.
Yeah, that's a big change. Because so when you squatted like 281 and 285 and stuff, was that in heels high bar?
Yeah, I was in heels high bar.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Damn, yeah. So if you could
Worlds
figure out
was
the
my
flats low bar
first
thing,
meet
I
in
feel like you'll have
flats.
a huge
Pardon?
squat. If you could figure out the flats and low bar thing, you'll have a huge squat
Yeah,
brewing.
Yeah.
I think we're
That's sick.
finally getting there. I think that, and same with bench, we changed up a lot of my technique. We switched my grip, which my pecs just really, really needed time to catch up on. And I think we're finally surpassing that. Like I'm hitting some rep PRs, which is cool. Like something I've never even benched for one. I benched for a double in training, which is sick.
Wow.
Oh damn.
Yeah.
Is that top secret right now, the number?
No, I posted it. It was
Oh,
147.5.
oh damn. Okay. That's awesome.
Do you ever think about like that, people like to hide their numbers and stuff. You don't care.
Yeah. We hid one time deadlift going into Sheffield was the only thing I didn't post. Because my deadlift blew up. Like it blew up and we were like, this is what we're gonna keep in our back pocket. It's the only strategy we have.
Mhm.
So we played the game and like put in a lower opener, didn't post deadlift training, stuff like that. But other than that, no, I'm pretty transparent and like if say Sanita were to message me right now and be like, "Hey, what numbers did you hit this week?" I have no issues telling her. Like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, because like you said, it's just you against you, and then whatever's there on the day, you'll just take
For
advantage and do that.
sure.
Yeah, that's a good mindset. And one thing we really wanted to ask you, and I'm sure lots of people like listening or wondering, is when you began, Did you ever think that you had this like kind of potential, or like you said, you've experienced lots of self doubt? Did you have that kind of belief that I could take this far, or was it never even a goal for you?
Uh, I never, no, I never thought I would be where I am now lifting. Um, it was just kind of something I picked up because I missed training for a goal and like pushing myself in some way. But I never thought it would take me as far as it has. I never thought I would travel the world with it. I never thought I would be breaking world records. Like even when they're loaded on the bar, I'm like, holy, like this is happening. Like we reached that point and that's super cool.
And when did you realize that you could become like really good at this?
So again, I have really bad imposter syndrome, so I don't honestly think I'm that great, which is so funny because people are like, you can literally like list the things that you've accomplished, but in my mind, it's like, okay, that was cool. Now we're on to the next thing. There's always more, there's always a bigger goal, there's always something else to be chasing, which is a great thing and a terrible thing about this sport. Like there is no finish line.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know, I just like to me, I'm just a person. I'm just a lifter. Like I go into like a small gym and there's somebody about like prepping for their first provincials and like to me we're on the same level. So I don't know. I think about like 3 or 4 years in, I was like, okay, there's a chance I could win nationals and go to worlds. Once I finally like made it to my first nationals, I was like, all right, maybe I've surpassed this and I can be decent.
I mean, I guess like it is a good thing, and it also is, like you said, probably your biggest obstacle that you have to overcome. The fact that like no matter what you do, it's like, okay, what can I do next?
Yeah. Like there's always something to be chasing, which is good, but can also be super, super unhealthy if you let it be. And like knowing when to tap out of competition, because like competition is something I struggle a lot with. So it's I like check in with myself every time I compete and I'm like, am I still enjoying this? Is this still fun? Because at the end of the day, like it's supposed to be. And
Hmm.
when I lose that piece of it, I know I have to be done.
Yeah. And on comp days and stuff, even though you've stressed in the past and like up until the comp, you're pretty anxious and worried, but on the comp day, you pretty much have always had like a good time and just enjoyed the sport.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love it. I love competing, but I hate competing because I'm just like such a nervous wreck, but I finally have channeled calmness into my meet day, which has made it a lot more enjoyable. And after I think yeah, it would have been after my first worlds, I kind of focused on like enjoying the people I was surrounded by and like getting to meet cool people and people from around the world, which is really, really fun and not an opportunity a lot of people have. So leaning into that, which just made the day more fun and like a lot more relaxed.
Is there like a certain point during like the average competition that you do that you kind of stop being nervous, or is it like after weigh-in or after squat one or warm up? Like, what is the point if there
After
is one?
squat one, I feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Squats are forever the bane of my existence. So my first worlds, I bombed out on squat, but got the third one overturned. It was the only squat overturned to a good lift that whole meet. So I
Wow.
stayed in it by like a gift from the powerlifting gods. But after that point, I'm forever terrified of squats.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a fear that I would have too if you almost experience bombing out. It's
Yeah, at Worlds, it's like, oh God, here's my international debut. I bombed.
well, like you said before, maybe there's more of a reason, like, oh, I was very nervous. That's why. It's
Yeah,
not centrals,
right.
It's not. That's so
Oh.
funny.
When was that? Was
Uh,
that 2021?
So that would have been 2019
Sweden?
Sweden.
Oh yeah,
20,
okay, okay.
yeah,
Oh yeah, because there's two of them.
yeah, because
There's two Swedens.
that year, yeah, I stayed in it by
oh
like
yeah,
on a whim.
crazy.
I squatted like 500 pounds and got a silver medal for it, like just to show
That's
how
crazy.
far squat has come in my weight class.
To 7
Oh
almost.
my
That's
God.
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like it's wild to think about, and it's even crazier to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's the really cool part is that you were a part of that like era, you could say, of total, and now you're one of the front runners like at the state where powerlifting is like next level.
Yeah, like it's just so interesting, and like how naive and how out of it I like to be. Like the year I won in Malta, like I had no idea what was going on, and I had no idea I won worlds or anything. Like I was just oblivious to everything, and that's how I like to be. But it just like goes to show like how much imposter syndrome I have, because I was like, there's no way I won worlds. Like maybe I podiumed, even though I was
Mhm.
like in the hunt the whole time. I'm like, I didn't know what was going on. I was just doing what they told me to do.
I think I heard that story like you probably talked about it somewhere, but how did you end up finding out? Like did Garrett come tell you or who like let you know like hey, like you're the world champ?
So Bryce was actually in Malta for his brother's wedding, so he was handling and coaching with me. Yeah, and he like looked it over and was like, "Good job, champ." And I was like, "Yeah, thanks. Like it was a great day." And he's like, "No, like you just won worlds." I was like, well, "What?" And just like started sobbing because that's my MO.
Man. That must have been a crazy feeling to realize like, yeah, I did good, I'm happy with myself, and it's like, no, like you are world champion.
Yeah, it was super surreal, and like everything that followed it was super surreal, especially after winning worlds in 2021 when it like quote unquote didn't count because Team USA wasn't there. Like to actually do it right, quote unquote right, was a really cool feeling. It's like, oh, like you guys discredited me when I didn't deserve it, but now what?
Yeah.
Yeah, what are you
Now
gonna say now?
now what?
Yeah.
You didn't even know, like, when you hit your third deadlift, like, out on the platform, you couldn't, like, you didn't fully celebrate because you didn't really know.
I had no idea.
But,
I had
yeah.
no idea. Like Garrett was so excited. And I was like, I walked off and I was like, look, boss, I didn't drop a third deadlift for once. That was all I knew was going on, is that I had held on to a damn deadlift.
Oh my God.
That's so cool.
So you didn't look at the screens or anything, I guess? Like,
I never
I'm bad
do.
with that. Yeah,
I
okay.
never, ever, ever do.
Do you think it would like mess with you a lot if you had seen like positioning and stuff? Like mentally it would make you just like what's the reasoning?
I would panic. And when I panic, I don't execute well. And I get in my head very easily about things. Like if I overthink anything, I'm gonna shit the bed. Like
Mm.
I just don't work that way. Like some people thrive on that, but I don't want to know. Like I trust my coaches with my whole life, and it is their job, not mine.
Yeah, I think
And
that's definitely
that's
the right way to do it. I'm always so, like, concerned about, even like what my competitors are doing, for example. I'm like watching them and shit, but I should be really focused on like what I'm doing. But I'm
Yeah,
always just like, I want to know what's going on, you know?
yeah, for sure.
when would you say you felt like you've gotten the skill of competing down, like executing and um like was there ever like a moment where you're like, okay, like I guess now I am good at this, like good at competing?
Um, it probably whatever meet I did after 2021 Worlds, because 2021 Worlds was really bad for mental game. But then after that I started working on powerlifting and therapy, which I never thought to like talk about my with my therapist, but I like realized it's a really big part of my life, and I was like, maybe I should discuss this. And once I started like talking about it and like what physically is happening to me in that competition setting, it all kind of started making more sense, and like I figured out how to channel the energy and channel the nerves into making it a more useful thing, or just like recognizing it and being like, yes, body, I hear you, we're freaking out, but we're going to put this in this box and we'll worry about that later.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that if you had because I know you and Bryce have a good relationship and that's something that really helps and has really helped your lifting and Garrett and other friends. But I was gonna ask if like you talked to a therapist about it and you did. And
Yeah.
was there they told you just to kind of like separate like your feelings from like your actual situation, or like what was the actual tip, if there is?
So we discussed how your body kind of goes into that fight or flight mode, and the panic feeling that you get, or like the like really extreme nerves, like I get really nervous, and it feels almost like panic, and like I've had panic attacks during meets. Just like recognizing it instead of trying to shut it out, and like hearing your body and being like, what can I do to satiate this, and like convince body like, yes, we hear you. And like that probably sounds so stupid, but like being like, yes, I hear you, and this is how we're going to deal with it, because like two things can exist at once. Like we can feel this way and still execute. Like we can do this, because like my legs used to go numb during squats. Like I couldn't feel them at all because I was so nervous. So like slowly I started being like, okay, body, like I understand what we're doing. I understand the reasons for it, and like these are the things that I'm gonna do to like convince you that it's okay. And like a lot of that is just like mental game, and like thinking about, like I've done things like this in training. This is what I've prepped my body for. Like trust that muscle mind memory. And like the self-confidence thing was a big part of it. And like
Yeah.
having coaches you trust, knowing that they're not going to load something you can't do, really helps, because it's out of your court. Like the ball is just out of your court, and you just have to execute like your body knows how.
Yeah. It's like you I can do this. I just have to go do it. And it's okay that I'm like worried about it because I can
Mhm.
do it. It
Yeah.
sounds so like so simple, like when you say it like that, but yeah, it's definitely hard to manage all the things going on.
For sure. I know every time I talk about it, I'm like, well, this sounds stupid, but sometimes stupid stuff is
No.
what makes the most sense.
Yeah, it doesn't really sound stupid. It's just that like when you're in that situation, you just overthink and then everything just seems so, and it really is just like, okay, like I trained for this. I my coaches would never load anything I'll miss. Like you just got to remind
Yeah.
yourself.
Like
Just
I have
like
done a million billion squats in my life. Like my body knows what we're doing. Just
yeah,
do it.
exactly. And like having some cues like I think it was Bryce told you like if you can walk it out, like you can squat it and just like
Yeah.
reminding yourself of these things. The one like cool thing that also sounds very obvious, but about powerlifting is like you can just, I mean, thanks to open powerlifting, I'm looking at it right now, but you can go back and like remember like, oh wow, like even though I always get nervous, I remember like 2021, I was so nervous, but then I executed and became world champion. You
Yeah.
just you just like kind of remind yourself that way as well.
Yeah, that was my first meet with Garrett, and it's crazy like how many meets we've done together now as him with my coach and handler. But yeah, that was the meet that I had a panic attack warming up for squats, and then still pulled it out of my ass and became world champion. So it's like, I don't know, it's just weird. Like your body is capable of so much more than you ever like give it credit for, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, even like in terms of like injury too, I know a lot of people in powerlifting once they I don't know if you've had any injuries, we can definitely speak about that. But once someone gets injured, sometimes they just think like, okay, I'm out of the sport. But once you can
Mhm.
overcome something once and you get healthy again, then you know that okay, I can do this again.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's really difficult to not give up on that though, and like
Hmm.
trust the process that you can get back.
Hmm. Have you dealt with any like injuries, severe or I mean minor ones, like I guess your elbow and like you were
Yeah,
mentioning?
knock on wood, I've never been injured. I just had like really bad tendonitis in my elbow.
Hmm.
But other than that, I've been very fortunate.
Oh, that's good. It's pretty impressive too, because in this sport, people do get injured from time to time, and you've been
Yeah.
doing it for a long time, and yeah, you've been pretty lucky. But
And like I watched
obviously,
some of my old lifts, and I deserve to be injured based on how I was lifting. Like it's rough, man. I'm like, who ever saw potential in this thing? Because it wasn't me.
Well, like especially with the rapid progress on your total too, like slapping 90 kilos on your total, like that's
Yeah.
normally like risky territory, you know? But
Yeah.
I guess you always trained like pretty like in the pocket per se, so that
Yeah.
probably like adds to your longevity.
Yeah, for sure. And like we still try to, but my in the pocket looks a little different than it used to. But Like that's the thing with Bryce's coaching. Like even before Sheffield, like I'm never gonna hit an RP 9 single. Like I'll hit an 8. That's it. Like that's as high as we'll go.
Do you know if Bryce like programs that for like a lot of people, or you think it's just like specifically works well for you, which obviously it does, but
Yeah, I'm honestly not sure what his programming generally looks like. And I know it's based a lot off like reactive training systems style.
Mhm.
But as far as like what RPE people hit, I have no idea. But I know like he realized quickly that's what works for me, and that's kind of what we've stuck to. Because like the blocks where I go like all out and start out too aggressively or like am hitting like true RPE, I just don't progress like I do when I stay in the pocket.
Mhm. If you could tell like younger version of you, like younger Brittany just starting out, like a few things, what would you say to her?
Just based on this conversation, that it's supposed to be fun to try to take some of the pressure off myself because I really struggled with that after Malta. And like several other times throughout my lifting career, but after Malta was really rough. Um, and that like there's just like to enjoy the process. Like there's so much to this sport. Like I wish I had been involved in the sport as much as I am now from an earlier age, but I was so scared. And like I was super, super shy, and powerlifting like really helped me find my voice and kind of become more outgoing because I was just like so scared that I wouldn't volunteer because I was afraid to ask how to, which is why I'm
Oh
always
wow.
like, if you don't know, like just ask somebody, ask me, like we'll figure it out.
Hmm. When did you get the confidence like to just volunteer and to talk to people? Like, did you just notice like everyone in the sport is pretty welcoming, and so I don't need to be like worried?
Um, I think after 2021 Worlds, I was kind of like, oh shit, like I am going to be in the public eye in some capacity in one way or another, so I might as well make it meaningful, which
Hmm.
is when I kind of started talking about a lot of things that I experience and that I go through. Um, but I think before then I had like gained some confidence and become more outgoing and just like socializing more, but not on bigger platforms.
Yeah, I really like your Instagram. Like, it's definitely one of my favorite powerlifting accounts to follow. Obviously, you're super strong, but just like the way that you talk in your captions. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever like type them out and think like, oh, should I post this? But definitely keep it up because I think lots of people probably feel the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's super important. And there have been times where I've like dabbled with a concept for a few days and I'm like, oh, should I? Should I not? Especially like some more sensitive topics. But I'm like, no, like I made a pact to always be transparent, and like that includes the highs and the lows. And so here we are.
It's very important to show, I think, both. We were talking to like Nick Manders on like a recent podcast, and he was saying how he finds it like interesting that a lot of people only follow along for like the highs. Say like you're on a tear right now and you're absolutely destroying like you are.
Yeah,
Um, and then, sometimes people don't like to hear these like not so good things, but I think it's important, like even when you're at like the top and doing so well that you can kind of show both sides.
for sure. I don't know. Like if people don't want to follow along with it, that's fine. Like I don't care. To be totally honest. Like just don't follow me then. It's fine.
Yeah, I think it's good what you're doing. More people need to do that. We have a few more questions that we can go through. Trevor and Kyle, did you have anything that you guys wanted to bring up as well? Like anything that we've talked about or Evan?
Paige wanted me to ask if you played any sports or anything before powerlifting.
Yeah, so I was always in sports growing up. My main sport was softball. I was actually going to go to university for it, but I got super, super sick my grade 12 year and spent 3 months in the hospital and wasn't allowed to play anymore. So I stopped that and then went to college and didn't play sports. Um, and then when I moved up to Canada, that's when I was like, I need some kind of like athletic pursuit to chase again. And that's when I found powerlifting. So softball, I played volleyball, basketball. I've tried bits of everything, but those were my main sports.
A little bit of everything. You say you moved up to Canada? Did you live in the States?
Oh, yes, I'm an import. Yeah. Yeah, I moved to Canada in 2014.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
What state were you living in?
I was born in Ohio. I lived in Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. Like I went to university in Chicago. But I also lived in Canada as a kid. Like I was back and forth my whole life between the US and Canada. And both of my siblings were born in Canada. I was just born in the middle while we were living in the States. So
Okay. And then you spent most of your time down there. What age were you when you moved to Canada?
I was 23, 22.
Okay. And you moved straight to Ottawa?
No, I was living in London, Ontario for many years, up until the pandemic is when I moved to Ottawa.
Oh, cool.
Oh, okay.
Back then you were already training, competing. Where did you train? Like trained at home still, like in the
When I trained in London, I trained out of a little MMA gym called Adrenaline. They had space and they still have it. I had an ER rack, like I bought an ER rack and some Challenger Challenger
I
plates,
think it's
the like
challenge, yeah.
flaky paint ones. Yeah. So they're still there, but they had space for it and let me train there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, how did you find powerlifting? I think I've heard you talk about it maybe briefly somewhere else. Like I know you said you were really strong randomly on like a leg extension. You could like almost
Yeah.
max it out or something.
Yeah. Like there were multiple times I was just like maxing out machines and people are like, you're really freaking strong. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, thanks. But I had never had like much barbell experience. And then I was just training funny with a trainer at Good Life. And they were like, oh, like you should compete in because you you should compete in something. There we go.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, but like what? Like I didn't even know powerlifting was a thing. So I took a class on it and then just like signed up for my first meet. I was like, whatever, we'll figure it out.
So did you do any like SPD work beforehand or like when you were training for softball and stuff, did you ever squat and do any of that?
No, I had benched and like
Okay.
it was wild that I could bench more than the bar because it was a bunch of high school girls that could not, which is
Mm.
again really cool to see how far our sport has grown because there are high school girls that are benching more than I benched my first like 5 meets. Like that's so cool to see because it was like a big feat that you could bench the bar by yourself when I was in high school.
Yeah, it definitely has come such a long way. And you've been a part of it the whole time. Like,
Yeah,
well, for a long period of time at least.
yeah.
Yeah, like there's kids like on Instagram and like men and women just lifting crazy amounts of weights. Like on King of the Lifts or something, you just like open the app, you're like, oh.
Yeah, yeah, it's wild. And like they're kids, right? Like some of these people, I'm like, you are 10 years younger than me, and you are like, it's just growing so fast. I wish I had known about this sport when I was their age.
Yeah. It's
Mhm.
even sub juniors like at the world level now are doing things that are like
Yeah,
that total would have been competitive in the open like 10 years ago. Like
yeah.
it's crazy. So when you
Yeah, the
signed up
sport
for that
is.
meet, had you done any like barbell stuff yet, or were you just like, screw it, I'm signing up and then I'll figure it out?
I think I had maybe like a month of barbell work under my
Okay,
belt, maybe a month.
dang. Then what'd you total? I'll have your open powerlifting too.
Oh God, like
417 and a half.
200. I don't know.
Yeah, you added a lot to your total, like crazy amount. You might be, I think we had like someone, Dylan posted a graph one time. I bet you're probably at the top of the list of like totals, weight added to the
Most
total.
added to your total, yeah. Because so you totaled
Yeah.
417, now you total 710.
Yeah. There
Wow.
we go. Now I at least have to hit 717.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Outside of lifting, what are some of like the hobbies that like you have and that you have recently, since you were trying to kind of find yourself more like gotten into?
Um, so I'm a huge dog junkie. I spend copious amounts of time with my dog.
Uh,
Um, he's I don't know, an old man now, but he still has like the energy of a puppy.
Is
Good
he a
boy.
boxer? Or
So I have a boxer mastiff and I have a bull mastiff.
okay, cool.
Um, Professor Pancake and Mr. Waffles.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh, love it.
yeah, so they're both old men now, but lots of dog time. Finding, I don't know, like spending time with friends more, which sounds silly, but like when I'm close to competition, I used to like shut down and like I wouldn't socialize because I was so channel vision focused on my meet that I would just like not intentionally, but I just like would turn down plans and stuff. Whereas now I'm trying to keep more of a balance of that kind of thing. Um, let's see. Um, my partner is currently training for a meet, which has been chaos, but God love her. It's been really cool to see somebody having so much fun with the sport after I've taken it so seriously for so long. It's like, oh, like I don't remember ever feeling this way about this sport, but I bet I did. And like I bet I did silly stuff and like had so much fun training and like it's really cool to see that again. Like it's been really humbling, honestly.
Yeah, you've been posting the prep updates, right?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
is
she's
is
a
it
week
this
and a half
weekend?
out.
Yeah, week and a half. That'll be very fun. So you're
Of
gonna handle
her
her?
4 week prep.
Wow, she just jumped right into it.
Yeah, she's like, by the way, I signed up for this meet. I was like, that's in 1 month from today. She's like, yep, cool, cool.
Are you like coaching her?
Yeah. Yeah, which is I don't know. I'm like I don't coach. I'm not a coach, but like I know enough to get through. I mean, it's 4 weeks. It's pretty hard to mess that up. Just like making sure that she's hitting comp standards and not getting injured and just like we ran like a super easy like 5-3-2 and then this is peak week next week. So but it looks totally different than my peak week. Like I'm starting peak this week or last week and I'm just trashed. And she's like, I feel great. I'm like, well, that must be nice.
That's very exciting. Yeah, I've been watching the stories I think you've been posting. Very good stuff.
Unhinged.
It's funny
Yeah, you
too
can
because you're
see.
prepping for Sheffield right now, and then she's she's doing this. There's
Yeah.
like zero expectations. Everything's
Zero.
PR.
It's like a little unsanctioned meet at my gym. And I'm just like, all right. I mean, this is the way to go. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It makes no difference.
Honestly, those are the best. I feel like starting out the unsanctioned like
Yeah,
ones. Like I did a bunch of collegiate meets, and they were still like some of the most fun meets I've ever done.
for
Just
sure.
yeah. I was
Oh,
gonna
go
say
ahead.
just the judging and stuff is not as like serious. Like you know what I mean? Like once you start getting your red lights, you're like, oh, this is not fun.
Yeah, you're like, wait, I don't like this anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've refed at a few of like those unsanctioned meets as well.
Yeah.
Well, I only those ones because I'm not a ref. But yeah, like you just go out and like they're barely hitting depth and you're like, or like they don't hit depth and you're like, white.
Yeah. You're like, perfect.
Give them the
Love
I'm
this
not
benefit
for
gonna.
of
you.
the doubt.
But
Yeah,
also squat deeper if you sign up for a sanctioned meet.
Yeah.
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 This question because we all did our first nationals. I think what year was your first nationals?
uh it was my first nationals was in Ottawa, 2019.
Okay, yes, that's what we thought. So we pretty much Kyle did the one after that. He did 2020, but me and Trevor did 2019 nationals, the same one. That was our first time, right?
Okay,
And
yeah.
we're just wondering what we did wrong because you're at Sheffield 2 times now, two-time world champion, and we're us.
Well, I had really shitty coaches that didn't know what they were doing. They weren't even real coaches. So that carried me through nationals. Um, and then
Which is
made
also
a lot
wild
of
because
mistakes. No,
you came
I
like
don't know.
second at
It's
that
just
national or no, you won your first nationals, right?
yeah, I did.
Which is crazy.
I hit one squat, I think, and I missed one bench. I missed my second bench, I think. Maybe. I can't remember.
I think they were records though too, because like so your bench was 125.5. So you can only
Yeah.
load that if it's a record. And then same with
Yeah.
the deadlift. Same with the deadlift.
Yeah, I had been in the sport for like quite a few years before my first nationals. just like for mental health stuff, I pulled out of nationals that was supposed to be in Calgary.
Mhm.
And then before that, I just didn't think I was competitive enough. So, which I regret. And like, I wish I would have had that experience, but hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always, I think a lot of people have that idea of I'm not going to do my first meet until I can total this amount or
Yeah.
squat bench this amount. And same thing with like, I'm not going to do provincials or centrals or nationals until this. And
Yeah.
it's a silly mentality to have. I know it makes sense in the moment, but like you're just holding yourself back and no one cares what you total. You're gonna eventually look back on it and be like, wow, I added almost 300 kilos, like you. Like,
For
you almost
sure.
have.
Yeah. Like,
Well, you know, it was funny too. Before this podcast, we were all talking about questions and stuff, and one of the questions was going to be like, "When did you realize like you were so good at powerlifting?" And all of us guessed too. You're going to be like, "Oh, I don't think I'm that good."
yeah. No, it's so true. It's
Yeah.
so true. I'm just like, I was talking to Luke and we were training earlier, and I was like, I don't even know what to say. They want to talk about accolades. I don't have any. I'm like, nothing I've done this year is good.
Oh,
I honestly feel like
no.
that's part of it though. Is like part of your longevity in this sport is like not like thinking that you're like whatever, you're hot shit. Like you're just still
Yeah.
training, you know? Like you're still pushing yourself, even though you have accomplished all these things. Like you're still like, oh, like I've got more work to do, you know?
Yeah. And like,
Mm.
that's why I was super excited about this podcast, like compared to other ones I've done. Like, it's more of just like a chill conversation with you guys instead of like, oh, this is Brittany on pedestal. I'm like, no, this is just us having a conversation. I prefer that so much more.
Mhm. Yeah, we definitely wanted to come across like, more relaxed. And even at the beginning of the podcast, I didn't even really go that crazy into like all the things we've accomplished, but it's
Yeah.
it's a really long list. It would we would have still been going right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, to anyone listening, Brittany has done a lot. I mean, that open powerlifting is crazy. There's only like two numbers that aren't number one. No, three. Yeah. I only have one of those, and it was my first meet ever.
Yeah.
One day.
I think one of our other questions was, we're all kind of on team small calves or no calves.
Yeah.
How can we fix that? Because, I mean,
Um,
if anybody's seen
honestly,
Brittany's
it is
calves,
just straight genetics, and I used to get bullied for them. Like, my sister used to be like, "You don't even have calves; those are full cows," and I would cry.
Oh no.
It was just great. I think I was like 7 at the time or 8. She's so mean about it, but yeah, it's just genetics, and honestly, it's such a pain in the ass. Like, you ask virtually anyone I've trained with, I'm like, can you take my knee sleeves off? Please, I can't do it.
That's
Well,
easy
if
for
you could
us.
go
They just
back now,
fall
you could
off.
say I'm a world record squatter. So,
Yeah.
so basically, what you're saying is we're all fucked.
Yeah, you're just screwed.
It's
Honestly, like
over.
I would get before I changed the settings on Instagram, I would get like so many weirdos in my DMs just like obsessing over my calves. I was like, I can't do
Oh
this.
that's what I guessed too.
no.
I was like, it's definitely just she's got like the good calf genetics. Like she probably hasn't done a calf raise ever.
Yeah.
Like,
No, I've never trained calves. I've never tried to have them. They just happen.
Yeah, as soon Trevor, you were saying like, yeah, we all don't have calves, and Brittany's like, yeah, I know.
We know. It's
I
fine,
know.
guys.
Everyone knows, guys. Yeah, it's
Trevor,
it's
what
fun.
size sleeves do you wear?
XL.
I have to wear a 3X to get them over my calves in the
Oh
powerlifting
my
sleeves.
God.
Yeah.
What?
I can do a 2X in the classic sleeves, but I got stuck. I got stuck in the 2X because Rhea was like, no, just pull them on, wear a deadlift sock, pull it on, you'll be fine. So I pull this 2X on and it's like folded up still, and I got stuck and I panicked and I actually cut it off like right when it came out with the sleeves. And it was on Rhea's birthday. I was like, hey Rhea, I messed up.
The new
My
ones
sim-
are hard to get off for
Oh
whatever
god, they're
reason.
so rough.
I don't find them that bad to get on, but getting them off is a bit of a chore.
Yeah.
they're even like a lot more compressive on your calf though too. Like if I'm doing like higher volume squats, like I can't wear my old size because like my
Yeah.
calves will just be like on fire, like full of lactic acid or whatever, because they're just
Yeah,
tight.
they're rough. They're rough.
Yeah, I
Kyle,
keep
what size
saying
do
I'm
you
gonna
wear?
size up, but
I used to be able to get away with size smalls, which is crazy, but now like I had to size up for the powerlifting sleeve.
Yeah, I know some people that like you wouldn't. I mean, I guess it's because we all have no calves, but some people wear very small like sleeves. Like I
Yeah.
think even like some of the 83, I mean, the cows of 93 like can wear like smalls and stuff like that. It's so crazy.
Like
Well,
when
like
we
Russ, who has giant legs, I think wears like an extra small or something like that.
I don't get it. Like we did a photo shoot for SBD and Blake was like, "Yeah, I wear I think a small." And I was like, "How? How do you how do you fit into that?"
Yeah, my foot, like I think I tried to put on Kyle's and my foot is just too fat. Like I felt like it's
yeah,
not gonna go up. Like my foot doesn't even want to go past.
I think I tried
Oh
to put
god.
Kyle's sleeve on my arm and I couldn't get it on.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
definitely a
this is an
Those
attack
skill.
on
skinny
my
little
calves
feet
now.
though, they're only this wide.
It's okay. I have no calves too. I think it's just because my foot is too swollen. It should work.
Brittany, did you ever try like any of like the super stiff like when Inzer first came out with those sleeves, or you always just wore SPDs?
I've only ever just no, that's not true. I had slingshot sleeves at first, back in the day, and then straight to SBD.
Okay. Yeah, because I would imagine those would be brutal. I've heard many stories of people getting stuck in those.
I legitimately don't think I could get them on in a size
Yeah,
that would be at all beneficial at like even slightly.
yeah. Like I tried on I think a medium and I did like one rep with a red on squat and I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah.
Just like
I
doesn't
just
feel good.
I just don't because they don't stretch at all. And I'm like, I don't think I could physically get it over my calf.
Yeah.
I got a part of the ones Luke has, the Hantu ones, like a couple
Yeah.
years ago, and I just about had to cut them off. I was at home alone, Paige wasn't here. I
Oh
had them stuck
no.
on for like an hour and a half. It was horrible.
And then you
Never put them
start
back on.
panicking and everything is so much
Yep.
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's scary. I've never really experienced like having a sleeve get stuck because like if it's too hard, I'll just give up. But
Well,
even
you
like a
only put them on
prong belt,
halfway. You
yeah,
put them on your
exactly.
calf.
Yeah, my calf is just so small they just slide off. But I've had like a prong, or I'd never had one, but I tried someone's prong belt and then I just put it on like normally. And then I did like a high rep set and I tried to take it off and like it was hard to get off. And I just started having a panic attack. I was like, no, and I can't breathe and it's hot in the gym and I just couldn't get it off. I was like, yeah, no, this is not for me. I need like the SBD belt is definitely the way.
Yeah.
One more question about outside the gym. Because a couple of you guys, like I think it's like Garrett, you and Bryce all play Magic, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
Magic the Gathering.
Yes, the magic question.
So who's the best player in Canada? Who's the Magic champion?
Okay, so I was asked this too. So Garrett is violent. He is violent when he plays Magic. He is just like the most aggressive, just like zero hesitation. Like we call it playing fair Magic. Like when you actually get a game going and like create a board state and like it's fun, but Garrett's like, no, I'm just gonna kill everyone all the time, just quick and dirty, and like the decks he builds are just brutal. So he generally will win, but I don't necessarily know that he is the best.
So he's just evil. Like, could
Yeah.
anyone do that? Like, if you wanted, you could just do it, but like
Yeah,
he's
but I don't think it's fun.
he
So,
just sees
but like
red.
I like when I go and train in Barry, we'll play with his like gym crew and they're all just like degenerates like he is. And they're all just like
Mhm.
screaming at each other. I'm like, I am not cut out for this because like I don't know. I was never into Magic or anything of the sort, but they were like, "Oh, let's get into Magic before Westerns this past year." And jokingly, I was like, "Ha, I'm gonna show up with a deck and destroy them," but like I had no idea what it meant. So I like went to my local card shop and I was like, "I have 11 days to learn how to play Commander," and they were like, they just laughed at me. They were like, "There's no way." And I was like, "Well, screw this guy. I'm gonna figure it out." And then slowly, I like actually started enjoying it, and I was like, "Well, I hate this for me." Like I became that guy that I used to judge.
Yeah, I have an athlete, Shyla, who lives at Barry Barbell, and then like depending on like the time of the year, like you'll just see like a or like the time of the day she trains, it'll just be a group of people huddled around a
Yeah,
table
the
playing a
table
game.
set.
Yeah,
like blocking
she's
people from actually training. We're like, oh, sorry, guys.
yeah, it's so funny. She'll be
Yeah.
doing like squats, and I'll be watching, and then I just like kind of like notice like there's like just a bunch of people huddled around playing
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
game. So funny.
How did
Yeah,
you do when
Garrett's
you
gym
guys
is really
played at
good.
Westerns?
Pardon?
How did you do when you guys played at Westerns? Were you able to learn? Like,
I learned a lot that week. And then slowly started figuring it out on my own. And then like every time I would travel to Barrie or to Calgary, like I would play, and Bryce was really helpful in helping me learn that as well. Because he would like remind me to like look at all the triggers on my cards if I was forgetting. And like I ran a deck, a zombie deck that he pretty much had built, like a very similar one. So he knew a lot of the cards by heart. So I learned that way. And then like slowly started figuring out what things meant. But now I understand most of it. But it's such
yeah.
a complicated game. It's wild.
I was gonna say, I feel like the barrier to entry for games like that are like you have no idea. Like, there's just so
Yeah.
much that goes into it.
Yeah, I think I would I don't know if I could be good at a game like that, or if I yeah, I want to start, and then like you said, you might just become the guy that like you used
Yeah.
to.
It was awful. At Worlds in Lithuania, we were playing in the weigh-in room, like where the scale was. So people were trying to come check their weight, and then we're all just like nerding out, playing with all of our like international pals. And we're like, we can step out of the room if you need to weigh in or like check your weight. So we would have to like go stand in the hallway. I'm like, sorry, this is us.
Is there
Some of
people from
your
other
guys'
countries that would play
yeah,
too?
that's what I was
Or-
gonna say.
Yeah, so we have two pals from the UK that play, Peach and Amelia. They're super into it as well. And then we've had other people that are like, oh, you guys are playing, like I wish I would have known. But yeah, it's super cool.
Damn, yeah, that's cool.
Uh, one question that I was having is you said you never really expected to obviously compete at such a high level or
Mm.
travel the world for like powerlifting. Had you traveled or did you care about travel before? And then now, like, what's the favorite place you've been and do you enjoy it?
I traveled a bit, but not a lot. I studied in Italy when I was in high school, and
Oh, cool.
then like I don't know, I went to like Paris and whatever, but powerlifting was really the start of it for me. Coolest places I've been. The Lift for Life outreach trip that I did in Zimbabwe was like hands down one of my favorite experiences. Um, that was lifting related, and then also seeing New Zealand. Like I competed the day before my birthday, and then
Oh,
just
wow.
like stayed for 2 weeks after, and just like it was so cool to be there. Like New Zealand was beautiful.
Yeah, New Zealand looks unreal. I obviously haven't been because it's so far, but
Yeah.
it seems unreal. Like it's what's the weather like, especially when you were there?
It was gorgeous when we were there, like totally perfect weather, like comfortable shorts, t-shirt weather, sweaters in the evening, but like other than that, it was great.
Yeah, they have some beautiful scenes. Did you stay? I forget if you mentioned, but did you stay there for a while?
Yeah, for 2 weeks.
Oh wow. Yeah. It's worth it. I guess like how long was that flight? How long was the travel there?
God, I honestly I have blocked it out of my memory. Like because I started looking at flights to World Games in China, and I was like, "Oh my God, I've never been on a flight this long in my life." And then I looked at the New Zealand flight and I was like, "Oh fuck, okay, I have survived that." But it was brutal.
Yeah, I think that's just about as far as you can fly, like around the world,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Yeah. I was considering doing that. It was the Commonwealth, right?
Yeah.
Because I've always wanted to go to New Zealand too, but I was just
Yeah.
like, I can't remember what else. There was a different meet at that time, and I think
Yeah.
it's pretty pricey to go to New Zealand too,
Yeah,
right?
it was super expensive, but honestly,
Yeah,
it was
worth
so
it.
cool, so worth it. But like not somewhere that I think I ever would have just gone on my own
Yeah,
as
Yeah,
much as I
especially
wanted to.
when you look at the flight time, you're like, maybe somewhere else sounds cooler. Like if you
Yeah.
don't have
Yeah.
to go. 'Cause yeah, it's like a day, right? Or more.
Oh, way more. It was like
Oh,
almost
oh my
three
God.
days of travel.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the other
What?
side of the globe, bro. It's like the opposite end.
I still didn't think it'd be that bad, but I guess like with layovers and like you have to be on how is it 3 flights like minimum or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's unreal. Oh my
Even South Africa
gosh.
was pretty bad. I
Yeah,
know like
South Africa is rough.
some of the people from the States I think had to take 3 flights for South Africa and it was like 40 hours of travel.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess depending
God.
on where in the States you're from.
Yeah.
Unreal. And
That's
also how did you like obviously Sheffield is cool, but how did you like England like going there?
Obviously, Sheffield was cool. So when I went to compete in Sheffield, I didn't see anything in England. Like I was just there for the meet. But
Oh
the
yeah,
year
you
that
came
I went
back.
as a spectator, so year one of Sheffield, I toured around a little bit, and it was really nice. It was super cool. It was gorgeous. I had such a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, we really want to go and watch. I feel like that'd be a great trip.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you ever get the chance, like even just being in the crowd year one, like oh God, it's just you cannot explain it. Like you care about every single one of those lifters so much. And it's
Hmm.
such a cool feeling because everyone else does too. And like
Yeah.
it's not like there's one lifter that gets up and somebody's like, boo. Like, no, we all want them all to do well.
Yeah. And did you guys sit close? Like I think I remember that or was I mistaken?
Yeah, yeah, we were super close.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably unreal.
Because Rhea and Ryan, like with SBD, they sit with like all the SBD international folks in the first couple of rows. So I booked a seat like 3 rows behind, and sat just like with people I didn't know. But it was cool because one of the 84 plus girls that I was supposed to compete in New Zealand with from New Zealand that had to pull out because she got COVID. She ended up sitting right behind me. So like I already knew people. So we like got to watch the meet together and that was super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was
And
that the
at
year
that point,
Jesus was that the year Jesus did his like crazy super performance? I think it was.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. How
yeah,
was that watching in person? Like imagine
wild. I
yeah.
have pictures that I was sending to my friend of just how many reds were loaded on the squat bar and like how bowed the squat bar was because of it. I'm like, this is a stiff bar. Like it's not supposed to do that. Like it's fine to, but like it's wild.
Yeah.
yeah, I think he posted like just a throwback of one of his big squats from Sheffield. And it's already insane how much he's squatting, and then you just hear the yelling, and like it's just like unreal.
Yeah, it's so crazy. Like if you ever get the experience to watch, it's unmatched.
Maybe we can go in 2025 part 2.
Yeah, part
Part
two.
2.
It's been posted like the dates and all that for that?
I think it just says November TBD.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely something to consider.
Greg, we actually should.
I guess it
England in
depends
Get
because
on
November.
like
that.
2026 nationals will be in February probably or March. So I
Mhm.
guess it just
I think
depends.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's lots of time.
I think yeah, we should do it. It's my birthday month. So you guys can split the cost for me to go. That's amazing.
Damn, I was gonna say
That's what
you
I
should pay.
heard.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I
I
remember
got
at that
cats to
Centrals, like
feed and
after you had went to Sheffield or whatever, I was talking. I think it was Ryan Stin and Ryan Fowler with you at the SBD booth, and they
Yeah,
were both saying like, "Hey, Britt went to Sheffield the one year as a spectator, and then the next year she was there competing. So keep that in
yeah,
mind."
that's
yeah, I
really
Good
the
remember
luck.
key.
that.
That's
Yeah,
the key.
yeah.
Yeah, it's good luck. If we go, guys, we'll just be competing in 2026 there.
Exactly. That's all it takes, really.
It could work. Oh, it's Gizmo.
Yeah, Gizmo came to say hey.
Little ham.
Are your dogs around or they're upstairs?
Uh, my dog is on the couch behind me. One of them, Pancake, is snoring. He's come over a couple times and shoved his snoot under my arm, but
Oh yeah.
he's dark, so he blends into my hoodie.
Is there anything that you want to speak about that we haven't touched on yet, Britt?
Not particularly. Like I said, I'm fine to talk about whatever, but I don't really have a desire to like, I must discuss this today. I don't have an agenda.
Besides the Magic the Gathering stuff, that needed to be talked about.
Yeah, for sure. That was like the only thing on my agenda.
What's a fun thing that we can do to end it off? Trying to think.
But we had our question from the very beginning that Lucas started, remember?
Oh yeah, yeah. I was just thinking that too. There was
Now
fuck, marry, kill, squat, bench, and deadlift.
Okay.
That's what you're thinking of, right, Kyle?
Huh?
That's what you were thinking of, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Fuck. I mean, it depends how the lifts are going at the time, but right now we would say fuck, deadlift, marry, squat, kill, bench.
Yeah.
I think
That's the
bench
right
has the
answer.
most kills. Every power lifter wants to get rid of bench.
I think
Yeah.
Eric was like probably the only one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think if everyone had Eric's bench power, they'd be like, okay, we can keep bench.
Yeah.
Right. I know before Worlds, I was like, dude, can I get like a couple kilos off your bench, please? He's like, only if you give me squat kilo.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because when we went to the Strength Collective, we trained with him, I think for the first time. It's probably one of the other times he finally left his basement home gym.
Yeah.
But he on bench, I think he had a top triple and he did 1 plate, 2 plates, 3 plates, and then he was about to just go right to four. And I
Yeah.
think Trevor was like, well, maybe you should just do one in between. But he's like, no, it's like there's no reason. But it's like that's like deadlift jumps or sometimes squat jumps, he's just doing it on
Yeah.
bench.
I know when we trained on Sunday, we shared the Alico rack and I was like, okay, for squat, these were pound plates, but we were like 1 plate, 2 plate, 3 plate, 4 plate, 5 plate. And then for bench, I was like 1 plate, 2 plate. And then I was like, you lost me, dude. I can't just straight jump to 315. Like my bench does not keep up with yours. I'm sorry.
It's unreal.
Yeah, it was kind of humbling that one time in Ottawa because I usually train with these two guys and they don't
They
bench
can't bench.
260. So benching with Eric was like, fuck.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my 500-pound bench isn't very good.
He did
Yeah,
it.
right.
He did it to you for once.
I love training with people that are stronger than me. Because it's just like, oh, okay, like that's not that heavy. Like how like sometimes mentally like that weight's heavy, and then
Yeah.
you just watch like Eric like bench it, and you're like, oh, well, I can squat it. Like, or
So
like,
Sheffield falls on Luke Homer's birthday, and his classic lift right now, he out squats me by 1 kilo. He matches my best bench, and then his deadlift I can't touch. But I'm like, I am going to break your squat record, break our bench record, and take the world record deadlift on your birthday, sir.
oh
Because then
my
you'll
God,
have to
what a
make a return
gift.
to classic.
He should. We were talking about that. Like, he's so good at classic like raw lifting,
Yeah,
and
he's
he
so
should just do it.
good.
It
Yeah, it's crazy because that total kind of got slept on. It was that Centrals he competed against Blake.
Yeah.
Because Blake only beat him by a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Like
and
that was,
Luke tore his hand on his third deadlift. Like he had the strength, but just like ripped his hand open.
yeah. So those were like the two best 74 totals like ever in Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was his like first 74 raw meet or something like that.
Yeah.
Unreal. He needs to do both. Maybe I guess he'll be doing this nationals like equipped, or will he?
He's not doing this nationals. He just did equipped worlds and is taking a step back to let his body heal up some.
Yeah, probably a good idea because he's very good equipped lifting like Eric numbers, but as
Yeah.
a 74 kilo man.
Yeah.
How does it work with the World Games? So now that Raw is in it, how often is there a World Games? That was one thing.
It's still the same frequency and it's still the same qualifiers. There's just a category for raw lifting too.
Okay. But is it every 2 years, every four? What is it?
I think it's 4. I think.
Well, yeah, because Rhea won 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's every 4 years. Cool.
Yeah, I think COVID might have switched the years up a bit, but yeah, I think it's every 4.
Yeah. To be honest, that's good because I feel like having that every year would be just too many high level meets
Yeah,
Yeah.
like every single year.
So Brittany, for you right now, Sheffield is like on the horizon. That's all you're gonna focus on. But
Yeah.
you are qualified for the World Games, right? And well, you have to go back to Worlds as well.
Yeah.
Is that just something you're not thinking about for now, or you plan on doing them all?
I do plan on doing them all. I'm taking it one meet at a time though. Like if at any point I'm like, this is too much, like I'll tap out of something. Which is another reason that I'm like hesitant on doing nationals in Moose Jaw. Because I'm like, it's just another meet, even though it's not like the end all be all of meets for me. I'm like, it's just one more thing. And like it's
Yeah.
3 weeks after Sheffield. I'm like, I'm probably gonna feel like crap, but we'll see.
Yeah. I think it's not bad if you take the time off, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to do it, definitely. But I don't think anyone would find it weird that you would sit out. I think
No,
I
and I
probably
told
would.
Ray I'm just being a stupid stickler. Like I just want to keep my national title streak going. I was like, I'm being so petty about this. She's like, you really are. I was like, I know.
But you could just go take it as a training day then, like whatever you need to do, you do.
Yeah. And
But
it's
then
so hard because with Mackenzie, like she's a good lifter. And like who knows what total she'll put up. But yeah, it would
you
be
have to be ready, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe just do bench only or something, but I guess that won't solve the problem.
Yeah. I mean I signed up for bench only as well in case I have the itch to compete but don't want to do 3 lifts. So I don't know. We'll see what I end up doing.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a lot of competing. But yeah, I guess you do have to show up strong because yeah, Mackenzie's total is not going to be not small total.
Yeah. Like she's for sure slept on a lot. So
Hmm.
Yeah, she's done like
Yeah.
650-ish,
yeah,
right?
she did 650 2 years ago or a
Yeah.
year
Hmm.
ago, a year and a half ago.
But we talked about it on like the preview show for like the nationals that just passed, and besides like obviously your total being so good and like one of like the best in Canada, her overall total is just so high, and she's such a good lifter. It's just like yeah, like your total is just like making it not seem as like crazy, but it's
Yeah.
amazing what she's
It's
doing.
still, yeah, like a really, really, really good total.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what I forget what the stat was, but we did it and we looked it up, and it's like one of the best totals of all time for the weight class
Yeah.
still. So
Yeah. Like it's definitely not something to sleep on. So I'm hoping after Moose Jaw she'll do something international because she deserves it.
mhm, for sure. And what is the? Do you guys know where that's the Pan Am Games and American Games is the one that would this would qualify us for?
Uh
NAPF, yeah.
Oh,
that
NAPF, yeah.
NAPF. What else does it qualify? I think Commonwealth as well. If there is Commonwealth this year, I don't remember. No, we just had one. So yeah, I think it's NAPF.
There's something called like Pan American too. Like I feel like that's the same thing as NAPF, but Pan American is every 2 years or something like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
I
this
like I
year's
can't
is
keep
Pan
track of
American.
them.
I think this year's Pan American. I think it's just more countries are involved or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never really knew. So they're the same thing, but they just switch, or is it?
Yeah, like I think it's like the same competition. Like there won't be an NAPF and a Pan American.
Mm.
Like it'll just be the Pan American, but it's just more countries involved, I think, than like
Well,
NAPF.
I know like the Pan Am Games, like they do that, and that's like why they made that like on morning like near our area, but like on Morningside that big like center of for
Yeah,
training, just
yeah.
because they were hosting it like a few years ago.
But it's not like that. Like it's not the Pan American Games. It's like a multi-sport event. It's like a
Mm.
powerlifting specific Pan American
We
Championship.
should get into that though. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I think it's every 4 years as well. Yeah, hopefully people start and it's already started happening, but taking like the NAPFs more serious and
Hmm.
like having it like Euros is such a cool Europeans or the Asian Games or like whatever they call it is such a big meet. Hopefully it becomes like that here.
Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, the problem right
Slowly
now
but
is the
surely.
depth of competition. Like there'll be like one person that goes that's just like a superstar and has a fat total, and then it's not super competitive.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's because most countries do have like I think everywhere in the world is getting to the point where you have some good lifters, but I think a lot of those countries have like maybe one really good standout lifter and they just go to worlds. So
Yeah.
then yeah, we don't really have competition there. Well, sometimes of course, but yeah, it would be cool to see that happen. What do you think Canada, like Canadians and like people can do to help the sport grow in Canada?
It's hard. We desperately need meet directors. to keep running meets and meet directors in places that aren't the GTA, which is hard. Like Ottawa's finally gotten a couple of meets going this year, but like all across Canada, like there are so few meets, relatively speaking. Like I mean, obviously the US is huge, but there's just always hundreds of meets going on like every
Yeah,
weekend.
every weekend. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Just like the abundance of meets. And I think also like working on grassroots portion of our sport, like those high school meets and like the unsanctioned meets, like those things are important because they lead into the sanctioned portion of our sport. But it gives people a place to try it out rather than like investing all this time and money into something that they don't even know if they enjoy.
Yeah. Yeah, we need to do the red plates open.
Yeah, there you go.
We
It'll
were
still be in the
discussing that at
GTA.
one
That's the
point.
problem. There's so many meets like coming up in the GTA, but yeah, I see
Yeah.
what you mean. It's hard to like spread them out.
But do you think there's too many though in the GTA? I feel like there's
No, because
still
they're still
like
filling up. Like they get booked
yeah.
up.
Yeah,
But
the issue
there's
is like if they're in the same region, they have to be 2 weeks apart just for
Mm.
referees. So you can't book
That
like
many.
back to back to back to back to back in the GTA. So it has to like have a little break because we have one meet director that in the GTA that's currently trying to find a date, but every date he's proposed, like it's already taken. So
Oh wow. So where would it have to be then outside of the GTA? Like what
I
would be
don't remember where the boundary is. I think it's like past Oshawa and
the
then
silo?
London.
do it at the silo.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
just do it at the silo. That's right outside of Oshawa.
There you go. It's a calling.
Oh,
There's
we're
some
a
kind
good
of rule
distance from
for
Oshawa.
square footage though.
No, I
And
know. I'm just
something,
kidding. But
something, you need red plates, not just blue. What?
Well, I got a couple reds.
Got a couple reds.
oh, we did that. We did the inventory, and we would have enough plates and stuff. I think maybe we'd have to get a little bit of extra ones, but we have like the 3 racks. So I mean, it could happen, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's just where to do it. And that's the thing too. I think outside of the GTA, some people might not want to go like past like the Oshawa boundary or whatever the boundary is, but
right.
yeah. I
I
guess
know
if
at
you
the
need to
Belleville
though.
meets, like people travel from friggin' everywhere because there just isn't really anything else. Like people are driving 3 hours for a local.
Yeah, people from Ottawa were zipping to Belleville all the time for those meets.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
remember
that's very
after
true.
COVID, there's people from Windsor driving to Belleville, which is
Yep.
like 6 hours
Holy.
because there's just
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah, my athlete Noah lives like in the middle of like nowhere, and he has to drive like 6 hours, 7 hours every time to compete. And I'm like, dang, like no
Yeah.
one's gonna throw a meet out there, but it's a big investment for him too. Like being younger, like you have to like book a hotel and then like all those things. So it is hard to get into, but
For sure.
Yeah, I know
Yeah, I feel like
Colton
next
talks
year will
about it
hopefully
in.
be better.
Yeah, I know Colton. He like they're out in BC, and it's the same. They have like 4 or 5 local meets for the whole year, and that's it. And they
Yeah,
fill up
there's
like
nothing.
instantly.
yeah, it's hard. Yeah, yeah, you have to be early on every meet. Like here now, if anyone wants to do it, a friend or something, I'll be like, all right, well, you have to be on there at 9 a.m. so that you can get in. Like you have to get accepted.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So
didn't know
maybe
that
we
that
need to
was the
go from
obstacle.
podcasters / meet directors now, just fully
Yeah.
washed up.
Yeah, we're looking for any avenue to escape having to compete.
See, I told
Yeah.
you you're not going to do your 20th podcast episode because you're going to be busy being meet directors now. I knew I'd
Yeah.
ruin
Where
it
the
for
money
you.
is.
That's
That's where all the
fine.
money is. We're losing millions on this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, we're desperately in need of some sponsors here. But
Oh, good.
yeah, I guess we can wrap it up here. I think it's been like almost 2 hours. I think we've been on the call for 2 hours.
Perfect.
But yeah, we
Oh
can
yeah,
wrap it
yeah.
up here. And thank you for joining the podcast, especially like getting closer to like the meet. And such a big meet, so sometimes
Yeah,
it's hard to do that, but we really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for coming on.
of course. You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Is there sponsors that you want to mention? And also like drop your Instagram handle so people can follow
Yeah.
along.
I mean, sponsors, of course, SBD and SBD Canada. They are my lifeline. They allow me to compete, and I would not be able to do what I do without them. And then my Instagram is at Bertleby.
Well, that's a good question. Where did the username come from?
So my sister used to call me Bert when I was a kid, just like to make fun of me. And then I just kind of like leaned into it. And like a million years ago, when Instagram was like in its baby little grassroots phase, she's like, make an Instagram. So I didn't know what name to pick. So I just picked Bertleby, which is like a derivative of what she had started calling me. And then I just never changed it when I started lifting.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
It seems like your sister definitely made fun of you a lot.
Yeah, she did.
Every time you brought her up, she's like, "Well, yeah, my sister, she made fun of me."
We get along now, but she was very mean when we were kids.
She's the older sister?
Yeah, older.
Nice.
Makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. It's just the rite of passage. It
Yeah.
just had to happen.
She helped shape
Alright.
shape you into the lift you are today.
Exactly.
Now, that's why you're so strong.
Without her, I am nothing.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, yeah,
Well,
thanks, Brittany. I think this was a great one. Thanks for
mhm.
coming on.
Of course.
Yeah, here, I'll end the recording, but we can